record. Okay. Um, so today, what we are going to do, let me get a chat pulled up. There we go. Cool. Okay. So, on the plate for this week and today and going forward is we're going to talk about the exam. It's midterm time. We're like a little bit probably behind, maybe, I don't know, some of your other midterms. Probably most of your midterms were probably done last week, but maybe you have a couple this week as well. But we're just running kind of like along with this, like trying to follow the syllabus as much as possible. And this kind of represents like the halfway point in this class. So it kind of seems like an appropriate time to do the midterm. So, um, let's talk about the midterm a little bit. Oh yeah, actually, let's just talk about what we're going to be doing this week, and then we'll talk about the midterm and kind of like what's going on with that. So this week, so today is going to be midterm review, and that's all we're doing today, and talk about that. If we go all class, cool. If we end up stopping a little early, that's fine too. And so that's what we're doing today, and then the midterm goes live tomorrow morning at I think midnight, I guess, is when it goes live, and it closes down at Friday night at midnight. So that gives you a 3-day window to take care of this thing. So it's designed to be about an hour long exam, but you take I gave you 90 minutes to do it, so you have up to 90 minutes to complete the exam, and you have to do it in one sitting. So make sure you have a good solid internet connection and free from distractions, because you get one shot, one sitting, as if you were doing this in class. But you have again you have a 3-day window to take care of this. So so we're not going to be meeting on Thursday, there's no class meeting on Thursday. I'll kick this out as an announcement, as a reminder, but we will not be meeting on Thursday for anything going on during class, because I want you to focus on just getting the midterm done. So let's see, what else did I want to say about any of that kind of stuff? So yep, that's all that's going on there. Upcoming though, what I will say is also, I'll send an announcement about this as well, but next week I will be out of town. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm actually pre-recording the lectures. So they're going to be asynchronous. So there'll be like regular lectures posted, and they're going to be posted at the regular class time, but they're not going to be live. So you don't have to watch them live if you don't want to. I'm just going to post them live as if we were going to be in class, so that if you have, because I know you have this time allotted and slotted in your schedule for watching this, for joining class. So what I will do is I will have those videos posted, and they will go live right during class time. So it's going to be almost exactly the same thing as if you were in live. It's just that it won't be live. It'll be pre-recorded. But I will be available because I'll be out of town, but I will be available by internet. I won't be available by phone or maybe Zoom. I'm not sure if I am going to have fast enough internet connection, but I will be available by text, email. Well, yeah, text, email, that sort of stuff. So just as a heads up, but I'll also kick this out as a reminder, as an announcement, kind of what's going on next week, just so that if there's like any questions or any delay, then that's where that's coming from. Okay, so any questions on logistics real quick before we move on? Nothing? Cool. All right then. So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about what's going to go on with the exam, and how the exam's going to go down, and what to expect, and how to study for it. And then we'll get into answering specific questions, and yeah, just like kind of the review side of it. So just from like I said, from a logistics standpoint, what happens with the midterm is it's going to be done in one sitting. So you'll have, it's a timed one, which is, the pressure's on. I know that it's a lot of pressure to sit down, especially when it's got that countdown clock that's happening there. So I fully sympathize with the way that works, but this is just how like exams are, right? Most exams are going to be done, especially if we were doing this live in class. If we were doing it in meeting class, you'd be sitting there and it would just be counting down, and you have to kind of stress out about that a little bit. And I'm sorry if there's any stress that goes associated with it, but that's how exams are. So again, you have 90 minutes to complete this in one sitting, and yeah, I think that's all there really is to say about this. So let's talk about what's going to be on the midterm. next. So I'm still kind of tweaking it right now. It looks like it's like I'm still like writing, kind of like making some final touches on the midterm right now. But right now it's about 40-ish questions overall. And this, so also to be clear, the whole thing is going to be done on Canvas. And yeah, so there's about 40 questions on the exam, and they range from like, there's some true false, there's a lot of multiple choice, there's a few numerical answers, and there's a few some questions where you have to do like multiple answers, like it's a pick the 5 out of these, whatever, eight answers, which of the following is true of this, and it has like multiple answers. So there's gonna be a few of those. Most of the way kind of the pointing system works is the true falses are gonna be worth about 1 point each, and most of the multiple choices are gonna be worth about 3 points each. And I think some of the numerical answer ones, I think they're around like 2 points, sometimes 3 points each. So it doesn't really matter what the overall point is, the number is, like it doesn't matter if it's out of 100 points or out of 90 points or out of 120 points or whatever it is, the point value adds up as. It doesn't really matter, because in the end this is just a percentage of your grade. So just don't stress out about like the number of points on, or the number of points that the midterm encompasses, because it's just an overall percentage. So the reason we do that's important, all I do is weighting the answers as a means of, I guess assigning points to values to give weighting to those different questions. So the true falses are going to be weighted less than the multiple choice. So so like I said, it's about 40, maybe like I think it might be like hovering, like I'm hovering around between 40 and 43 questions right now. I'm still kind of filtering out what the questions are going to be. Yeah, so like, and like I'm roughly gauging it to take about an hour, but I would imagine that like some people they're gonna blast through this really fast. I mean, like in any exam, some people are gonna be find the people who find this material fairly straightforward are gonna blast through this thing, and then for some folks that this is gonna be challenging, they're gonna have to take the whole time, and that's fine. Either way, it's totally cool. If you have accommodations and you've hit me up, you might want to hit me up with a reminder on accommodations, for timing accommodations if we have any. I've got a few folks in the queue, but I just want to make sure that I hit everybody that needs it. So maybe hit me up with a reminder just in case. And then also, okay, going back to the logistics of taking the exam. One of the things is, like, I would recommend, of course, you take this on a laptop or desktop computer. Do not try doing this on your phone. It's a bad idea. It's just, I've had people try to do this on their phones, and you could potentially do it on a tablet, but I would recommend doing this actually on a computer. Sit down and then make sure you have a quiet, like, distraction-free place, and sit down and just hammer away at this thing. Make sure you have good internet. I'm just thinking back, like, I've had students that are in the past that have like, they were like a valet, and they were literally trying to do this on their phone while they're driving other people's cars. That was a bad idea. Don't do that. Seems like hopefully the snow and everything is mellowed out. So I think everybody should have a decent internet connection if there is drama. So say, for instance, you're taking this tomorrow and some freak storm comes by and knocks out the internet for a little while. If you get disconnected or something like that, just hit me up. We can like, there's technology drama that happens, and we can overcome that. So if don't freak out. Just if you run into a technology issue, just please hit me up, and I can like start the clock where you left off, or that kind of stuff. The other thing I will say, so this is an open note, open internet, open book, like exam, but what it is not is an open friend exam. So you cannot share anything about this exam, because I'm giving you 3 days to do this exam. Some people are going to be taking this earlier than others. So please do not pass on any information about the exam to any of your classmates. That's actually a breach of academic policy. So that's, if it comes down, that's really, really, really bad. So just just be honest with it. Just don't share any information with your neighbors until the class is done. You won't be able to see anything about the exam until after the due date, which is on Friday night at midnight. After that time, I will open it up so you can see your answers, what you got right, what you got wrong, and if there's any disputes or anything like that, we can discuss that then. But up until then, just please do not share information, and you can't be taking it like with somebody else at the same time in the same room. Well, you can, but you can't be talking about it with each other. Like, hey, did you get this? Did you get this? So again, breach of academic policy. So just don't do that. Let's see, what else is there about to say about that? Yeah, I think that's all there really is on the logistics side of things. So any questions on that, on taking the exam? Wow, everyone's quiet today. Cool. I got some life. You're there. Cool. I know you're listening. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about what's on the exam and how to study for it. So yeah, I kind of mentioned what the kind of the format is. It's not like a section. It's not set up such that it's like true, false, or like, I don't know. Back in the old days when we did exams on paper, what I would do is I would oftentimes put like the true false section at the beginning, and then I have multiple choice section at the end, and then I would do like short answer. And a lot of times I'd actually do short answer back in the old days when we did things on paper. But the problem is it's very difficult to do this short answer kind of stuff on Canvas, because like, especially the mathy stuff, you can't show your work very well. There's so many, like, especially the stuff we're doing in this class, if you're using any math to show your work, is really difficult to do it. So I'm not going to do that for these kind of exams. So it's basically just straight up multiple choice or numerical answer type stuff. So, and the way the questions are organized is there is no organization. It's just kind of all over the place. So what I would recommend that you do as a test taking strategy is that the first thing you're going to do is, and the way I have it set up is, at least for right now, is that all the questions will be shown in one exam. It's not like you only see one question at a time. You'll see all the questions. So just as a stress reliever, and this is true for not just this class, it's for every class that you take. What I think you should do is you should take a quick survey. So when you start the exam, don't just start chipping away at all the questions. Like, go through, just quickly scan all the questions, like scan through them, and take a look at, just get a feel for what's going on, how long the exam is. Just kind of try to get a vibe for the thing, just because it's really stressful if you just literally chip away one question at a time without really a knowledge of like how much of the exam there is. So just you're like, okay, so, and also just to feel like, okay, these are the true false, there's a couple true falses here, this is the short answers, and just kind of get a feel for what the exam is before you really dive into it. Because I know the inclination, at least for myself, is to just go in and hit it really hard. But we want to kind of back up and slow it down and make sure that, like, breathe, take a deep breath, and make sure that you're solid with that. Also, please, I would highly recommend having some scratch paper around, and pencil and paper, and of course a calculator. The calculator can be either a physical calculator or the calculator on your computer, and that's fine as well. And you're welcome to reference your old quizzes and stuff. So just make sure that if you have more than one browser tab open, that or at least if you keep your exam and you're going to be doing other stuff, like looking back at your old quizzes and homeworks and stuff, that you're at least going to have that you have your one as a separate tab. Because even if you shut down your tab, if you accidentally close your exam, you can get back into it. The clock is still ticking on it. And so you can log back in if you accidentally close your window. It should, at least that's the way it's supposed to work. That you should be able to log back in and the clock is still ticking. So be like, oh, I close the browser. But also have some scratch paper and calculator around, just so that you can work on this stuff. Also have the book. I think having the book thumb through would be a really good option as well. And then also have all the PDFs. So all the PDFs are on of all the classes. All the lectures are posted as well. You're probably not going to have time to really go through combing through like the video lectures during that time. So, but I do have all the PowerPoints posted. So if you want to look at those, if you want to look back at any of that information, that would be great. And yeah, if you want to look back at your old quizzes and exams, that would be a good one. So in terms of what to study and how to study for this thing. So, so I think primarily where I'm drawing all the information for this, you're not going to be getting anything like way out of left field. All the content that I'm pulling for the quizzes or for the midterm is going to be essentially based off of the material from the homeworks. So that's going to be your primary study source. So go through and look at all the questions on the homeworks. And if you have any questions on something, of course we can hit, that's what we're going to talk about today. So about rounding numbers. So Jared asked about rounding numbers. So in terms of rounding numbers, what you're going to want to do is you can always just put in more decimal points than needed. Like, especially if you're working on a calculator and it gives you like to the 15th decimal point, just leave it in there and just keep working with that. But in terms of actual, like, it's hard for me to say exactly on the rounding numbers, because if we're talking about 1 times 10 to the negative 5, oh, okay, we'll say if it's 1.555 times 1 times times 10 to the negative 5, you don't want to really round those numbers up, or round those numbers. So with the numerical answers though, what I try to do is I put in a plus or minus range that should encompass it to a reasonable value. So in other words, if the answer for maybe the answer is 1.55555555555, and you're like, well, should I put 1.5555556 or 1.56 or 1.6? What I would probably do is I'll put that in there so that it's going to be a 1.5 plus or minus 0.1. And that way, you'll get in there. So even if no matter where you round that, you're going to be fine, but don't round it to 2. That would be kind of silly. So I would say, a couple decimal points, you're going to be solid with that. And you should be just fine. That should get you in the range that you need to. So maybe three decimal, we'll just say, just to be safe, 3 decimal points would be a good kind of rule of thumb. Just that will get you within those tolerances for sure. So basically it's going to be based off of the quizzes and the homework type stuff. So the numbers will be different and some of the concepts will be a little bit different, or maybe like reversed from what I asked in the thing, like which of these is true or which of these is not true. Some of it's going to be some pictures, a lot of pictures in there. There's no videos, there's no animations or any of that kind of stuff, but there are a fair amount of videos there are a fair amount of images that are asked you to like identify something in the image, like either stuff like the Fletcher-Munson curve or the some nodes and antinodal lines, or like spectrum analysis stuff along those lines. So that's where all that stuff's going to come from. But so yeah, like, even though I'm asking, like I said, I'm not going to be, sometimes the questions are like essentially like a number change from some of the homework stuff that we asked. Other times it's going to be like, well, conceptually it's still the same thing, but it's going to be a different way I've asked it. So like maybe it's a numerical answer instead of before in the homework, it was a multiple choice, but something along those lines. So but all the content is going to be drawn from that. So in other words, especially on the stuff that we didn't go over, like in the books, like there's a lot of stuff we didn't get to in class that's in the book. None of that stuff's going to be on the midterm. Like, I'm not going to pull anything out of left field like that. Let's see. So yeah, just to clarify, it's also up through chapter 10. So if you haven't done the homeworks yet, do those. Make sure you do those before you do the midterm. Because there's get hammer through all the homeworks up to this point, which is up through homework 10, and then get into the midterm before you do that. And I would recommend not doing it all in one sitting, because that's going to fry your brain a little bit. So take some time between the two of those. But you have till Friday night. I would recommend not waiting till 11 p.m. on Friday night to do this, but you got to do what you got to do. But I know you have this time on Thursday carved out, so I would plan on it. I think a good idea would be to plan on doing it on Thursday during class time, and that way, if there's any issues, you can hit me up. Like, I'll try to respond if there's any snags or technical issues. But again, if you hit me up at like 11 p.m., although I'm usually up till 11 p.m., I'm actually up way later than that, but I usually won't respond until the next day. So, cool. Okay. So a couple other things that I have going on here. I have written up this thing right here, which I will post here in just a few minutes. So I know that I swore that I was going to have this done before the end of the weekend, but this thing takes me a long time to write up. What I have here is a decibel study guide. I will say this also, I'm not going to be giving you a lot. I think the decibel questions on the exam are pretty tame. Like, I'm not going deep into decibels, and there's only, I can't say, I don't know yet how many they're going to be, but it's a very small portion of the exam. So don't worry about that. But I will say this is good to know. And also all this content will also be on the final. So the final exam for the class is comprehensive of the entire semester. So it's not like once you learn this stuff, you're done. This stuff will come back around. But I've created a decibel study guide right here. And the idea is to take every kind of particular case scenario, talking to some people, some of the frustrations with decibels is that it's like there's a disconnect from what I'm talking about in class to actually how to do the math. So what I wanted to do is come up with basically a guide that shows, I mean, they do it in the book, but I felt like the book was they move so fast and they're so abstract with it. Not abstract, but I felt like it's pretty rough. So what I did here is basically, I said basically like going through this is a decibels guide. It says ratios. So basic decibels. I talk about what the basic decibels are, and then I give an example of exactly how I would ask for this in the thing. So basically just go through and follow this along. And then so given the magnitude, asking for decibels. And then I said, given decibels, asking for the ratio or magnitude difference. And so I go each direction, either solving for decibels or solving for the value here, and then with some explanation going on here, and also with the answer, with a little bit of like a paraphrased explanation. So I have like basically like, here's the decibels, here's intensity decibels, here's essentially the same thing as basic decibels, but we're putting in values related to intensity. So example, if I start with an intensity of 2 times 10 to the negative 6 watts per meter squared and end with an intensity of 1 times 10 to the negative 2 watts per meter squared, what's the change in dB? And I try to go through and do exactly this is exactly how I would write this down on a piece of paper. So what you can do is, if you find a question on the exam or just in real life that you're like, okay, I have this and I need to find this, here's how we do it. So I literally write down dB equals 10 times log I2 over I1. I use the star symbol here, and I try to be pretty discrete or descriptive on this stuff. Like basically in this one, I'm putting 10 times the log of I2 over 1. In my notes and in my slides, I usually I omit this multiplication symbol right here. That's oftentimes how it's done. It's just not written with the multiplication symbol in there. You could also like, multiplication has a number of different like symbols that you can use. You can use the X, but the X is, like this is like a multiplication symbol right here as well. But you can also use the star, the asterisk. It also implies multiplication. Sometimes you also see people using dot as a multiplier, as a multiplication symbol. And sometimes you just don't use anything at all. So 10 log, it implies 10 times the log of, which is confusing, and I know. So I'm trying to be explicit with this one right here. So what I did here is so just to be clear here, is I wrote 10 times the log of I2 over I1. So so then basically I literally write this, go through and just type this stuff out. So what I didn't talk about here is like typing this into your calculator and I didn't do a section on scientific notation. So I felt like that was a little much, but I'm hoping that we have a decent grip on scientific notation. There are a couple questions on scientific notation in the exam saying well, I guess I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you need to know some scientific notation. So this is scientific notation. So how to write something in scientific notation and how to convert from scientific notation back to decimal. But things like learn how to type this into your calculator is a big deal. So, and the reason I didn't go through and type like how to type this into your calculator is because so many people have different types of calculators. So some people would be like to type this in, like you don't type 1 times 10 negative 2, although that can kind of work to do it that way. It's usually like there's an exponent button, 1 in my case, in the case of like this one, what I would do is I'm going to go for this one right here. I would say 1 EE negative 2. So that right here, this right here is that one right there divided by 2 EE negative 6 equals 5,000 right there. And then here what I do is I take the log value of that. I hit log. That's, oops, I don't know why I have that written there twice. It's 3.7. Let's get rid of that. Cool. And so I have dB equals 10 times 3.7. So you can see here I rounded, but that's because if I round any one of these up, it kind of propagates through. So I just rounded this up to 3.7 because that kind of made sense to do that. Because otherwise it's 3.70, it's 3.7, it's 3.699. So I rounded this one up to 3.7. So 10 times 3.7 is 37, or times 10, 36. So going from 1 times 10 to the negative 2 watts per meter squared to 2 times 10 to the negative 6 watts per meter squared represents a 37 dB change. So that's what that's saying there. Consolidate this a little bit. This was a mega pain to do so many sub and superscripts. Like my shortcut for that on this program is not working, and it was misery trying to get this typed right. Cool. So, and then I'm going into voltage decibels. So I did the same thing on voltage. So I talked about voltage. So voltage correlates to the 20 log version of it. So the 20 log version of it. So dB equals 20 log V2 over V1. And basically I just did an example right here of going, what's the example in dB change if I input is 1 times, well, 0.0001 volts and output is 0.01 volts. So we get 40 dB. And then I also said I want to find the voltage from decibels. You can find that one. I basically run through exactly it. It's the anti-log that gets a lot of people right here. So the anti-log of both sides. But I'm hoping this kind of makes sense. Go through it. Then I'm talking about decibels with reference values. So here's all the reference values here that use the 20 and the 10 log. And then the sound intensity levels. So I'm doing a sound intensity level question, both directions. Doing SPL question, both directions. So it's pretty explicit. I haven't finished this one. This is why I haven't posted it yet. I have to redo this one right here. This is still intensity. I have to convert that one to pressure. But basically it's showing explicitly how I would do this. And just again, to be clear, what I would do is I would do exactly how I wrote this here is how I do it on paper. So I write the equation, then the next step I resolve it, and solve it. So I basically go step by step by step by step by step. I don't usually write comments in there, but that's exactly how I go through and do equations. So the idea is that when you find yourself with a question, maybe on the exam or on homework or something like that, that you should be able to find a question that is closely related to what's on there. So you have a reference for exactly how to pull that, how to do that. Like I said, I'm going pretty light on the decibels for the exam, just because, I mean, I think that's a minor, it's an important, but a crux point for the class. And I don't want people getting hung up on that too much. So I'm not going to be spending a ton of time on that. So basically the question is, are all the dB questions going to give the initial rather than where each different type of decibel has its own default initial that we have to go and find in the homeworks? It's going to, I would say I can't, it's both. So they're going to, like when I say initial, so if we're talking about something like a decibels with a reference value, so like if I give you dBSIL, we know the initial value is 1 times 10 to the negative 12 watts per meter squared. But if it's just like a fader value change or something along those lines, it's going to be not giving you the initial, and maybe I give you the decibel. I'll give you the decibel, and you have to solve for maybe the initial, or maybe solve for the final. So, but both of those, all those are covered in that study guide thing that I wrote there, that decibel reference sheet. So that should be pretty good. I'm not going to ask you ever to solve for the denominator, the initial value. So you will always either have the initial value or solve for like the ratio of that. But yeah, does that answer kind of your question, Brett? Cool. Okay. So that's kind of where things are right now. So at this point, basically, it's going to be an open forum. Oh yeah. Yeah. So let's go over that real quick. So yes. So what we're going to do now is essentially it's going to be an open forum. And so there is no, there's no real hardcore like planned out format for this review day. It's basically, let's go through some questions and work some stuff out. So let me pull my chat again because I lost it. So let's go through this like a question. Let's do a different one. Let's do voltage one right here. Or let's do this one down here. Let's do a dBSIL. Okay, so find a dBISL when given an intensity. So an example, 5 times 10 to the negative 6 watts per meter squared is what in dBSIL? So the question is this: dBSIL equals 10 times the log of I over I naught. It's 10 log because it's intensity, and intensity, it's right here. It shows its intensity. And so therefore we know that the I naught is a 1 times 10 to the negative 12 watts per meter squared. And then the numerator is going to be 5 times 10 to the negative 6 because that's what we're looking for. So you'll see that I didn't actually write in. So technically this is 5 times 10 to the negative 6 watts per meter squared. And this is 1 times 10 to the negative 12 watts per meter squared. But I didn't write those in there because those just cancel each other out. And it's just extra stuff to have in there that's like, we know they're going to cancel out. So I didn't write them in there. So I'm hoping that's kind of clear. But I don't know, maybe I'll write those back in. So, okay. So what I want to do is to do this on a calculator. Let me put my calculator here. So, and this is, I'm on a Mac right now. So this is using the Mac Scientific Calculator. So you can choose like View Scientific. There's a ton of them out there, a ton of calculators out there, but this is just a good old Macintosh calculator. So this is the same thing if you're on an iPhone. It looks exactly the same as this one. So what I'm going to do here. So the first step is I'm going to take 5 times 10 to the negative 6 and divide it by 1 times 10 to the negative 12. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to go 5 EE6 negative. So that right there, that 5E6 is the same as this one right here. I'm going to divide that by 1EE negative 12. And at this point, I can just hit equals. So it's some gigantic number right here, which is actually 5 times 10 to the 6th. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I can write that as what is that, 50 million, or I can write that as 5 times 10 to the 6th. Wait, is that 1, 2, 3, 4? That's 5 million. Sorry. Yeah, 5 million or 5 times 10 to the 6th. It's the same thing. So I wrote it down here. It's up here. It's written as 5 million. And down here, it's written as 5 times 10 to the 6th. That's the same value, same difference. So now I'm going to take the log value of that one, and I just hit the log right here. It's going to be 6.6989, blah, 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 which I wrote, just rounded to 6.7. Because this is so many high values in here. If I rounded this one up, then this would go to 0, then this would go to 9. It would be 6.699. So that'd be kind of crazy. And then I multiply that by 10. And it's to be 66.7. Oh, so I rounded that one to 69. I could, yeah, I guess I like to round this one. It would have to be 66.99 or 66.999, or something like that. So this one actually is really close to 67. And like I said, I'm going to have tolerance values in there that'll allow it so that it should fall within that range. So, with that saying, and this is kind of hard, I know that, without a ton of intuition, like part of it is to sit there and ask yourself, does this make sense? So dBSIL is like sound level that we think of as humans. That's stuff. So it's going to be usually it's going to be between 0 and 120 dB. If you're getting something like 6 million here, that's wrong. Like you're not going to get 6 million decibels. And so part of this, the thing is when you get an answer, ask yourself, does this make sense? And it's hard because when you're solving if you're going backwards and you're solving for intensity, so the range that we're going to see so in this case, 85 dBSIL is what in terms of intensity? Let me get this corrected. So 85 dBSIL. So in this case, I'm giving you the 85 dBSIL and I'm asking you to solve for the intensity. So it's going backwards. That when we do this, that you have to ask yourself, does this make sense? And this is confusing. So the answer on this one is 3.16 times 10 to the negative 4 watts per meter squared. Or you can also write that as 0.000316 watts per meter squared. Same difference. So you ask yourself, does this make sense? So, and also just to note, if I were to ask you this as a numerical question, like there's no way you can type this in as a number. So it would be something that you would type that in as a 0.000316 as a number. That's what you would type in. And you wouldn't type in the watts per meter squared because you can only type in a number. But I will give you something that's not going to be like ridiculously number of zeros. So it's not going to be like to the negative 8 where it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 zeros. That's going to be too hard to do. So, but like you have to ask yourself, does this make sense? So, and the way you would ask yourself, does this actually make sense? The range for this is going to be between 1 times 10 to the negative 12 to 1. That's going to be the range of this. So if you're getting something that's like 3 billion, that's going to be wrong because it's going to be between because that's the threshold of hearing is 1 times 10 to the negative 12 watts per meter squared, and the threshold of pain is 1 watt per meter squared. So that's going to be within that range right there. And I know that's kind of hard to understand sometimes if you're not used to looking at like gigantically negative numbers, like in scientific notation, but it's just like if you have the means, you can like you can say, does this answer make sense? So because like it's spooky when you get these numbers on your calculator and you're like, they just seem like random numbers. And so but you have to ask yourself, does that make sense? In the end, does that make sense? Cool. I think so. I don't know. I can't remember. If there may be one that's going to be like a numerical answer. So it may be like a numerical answer on the decimal one. So on this one would be a good candidate for a numerical answer type of a decimal question. So that's the one where you're gonna be like, does this make sense? I don't want to dwell on decimals too long here. So I'm going to move on this because we're not, like I said, I think there's like 3 questions on this in the exam, maybe 4. So it's not a whole lot of the exam. So I don't want you to get like terrified thinking this is going to be the exam. The whole point here is I'm trying to make this study guide here. So it makes it pretty easy. Makes it pretty easy to like correlate what you see on the exam to what you see over here. And same thing with the homeworks. Cool. I'm going to post it just in Canvas. Where it will be. I'll post it in the midterm. So there's a midterm section for today. Actually, I'll go ahead and pull that up. I'll show you how I'm going to do this. So this is the class. So this is week 9 is that we're in right now. So I'm going to post it right here. And there's also at the bottom, the midterm is down here, but I will also post, link it. Actually, I'll just go ahead and do it right here. Do it now. Oops. Midterm, add question. So the midterm is posted right here under this, but it's also posted at the very bottom of the page under midterm and final exam. Right now it's showing as 110 points. It's not live. It's published, but you can't see it yet. So it won't go live until tomorrow for you. So right now it's showing as 110 points. That's what that just randomly kind of turned out to be. So I will post the study guide, the decibel study guide right here as well. Cool. All right. So that's kind of where we're at with that. I guess with any other questions so far on so let's hammer out some stuff. What are you thinking? I could talk till the cows come home. So I want you to tell me what you want to talk about.
I appreciate the ability to use the homeworks on the midterm. For a lot of them, they say that, well, for most of them, I know that they won't show you the correct answers until you've done, your 2 attempts. Um so and well, I guess my question is, I've been able to kind of get through a lot of those homeworks without actually having to retake it, and this means I can't actually see the right answers for a lot of those. So what do
Yeah.
you think is my best course of action there?
Yeah. So this is a decision I had to make when building these things out. So the idea is that you can't it's I hear what you're saying, especially if you ace the homework on the first try, you don't want to do it. What I would recommend, and this is probably going to be for the rest of the semester, I would recommend that even if you ace it the first try, the second try, even if you just hit submit without even doing it, you'll get all zeros. That's okay, because if you aced it the first time, you're fine, and that way it'll show you that. If for whatever reason it's closed right now and you cannot go back and resubmit a second one to make them shown, I can go back and I can force them shown. It's kind of this weird logistical quandary I had to deal with when posting these homeworks. Basically, it's like I want you to be able to see them, but like the problem is, like, the way I could make it do is that it's after the due date you can see the answers, but the problem is, like, for these homeworks that we have coming up, the due date isn't until at the same time as the exam. So I want you to be able to see the answers prior to that. So that's the way you can kind of trigger that. But I also can't make it so you can see the answers every single time you take it, because otherwise you'd see the answers between the 2 attempts. So it's just this kind of weird logistical conundrum that I have to deal with. And so to deal with this, so I guess what I would recommend is for everybody is that you basically, if you ace it on the first attempt, just go take a second attempt. That it takes you literally 5 seconds to take it again, and just hit submit at the bottom and don't actually answer any of the questions, and you're good. And because it keeps the highest one, and then after that I'll show you that. If for whatever reason on your old quizzes, if you didn't do that and it doesn't allow you to take a second attempt, I don't know if it allows you to take a second attempt even after right now. I can't remember how it's set up. There's like a million buttons when you set these things up, and it's really confusing. I don't know if it's set up so that you can see it. So I don't know. And if that's the case, I can manually open those up. And what I probably will do, yeah, I'll probably manually open those up so that you can see the answers, even if you only took the first one. Let me see how I can do that. I have to do that over on the side of the screen. So let me do that on quizzes. So let's see. Let me just take a look at this real quick. Okay, yeah, so it should show the correct answers after the due date, but for the upcoming one. So I will go through, like, at least I'm looking at just homework 1 right now, just so you can see what it looks like for me. So what I have to do is say, let students see their correct responses. Let students see correct answers. Show correctors answers. So I can say, this is what I've been doing is only after their last attempt, but I can say show the correct answers at January 28th. So this is after the due date, but I have to go through and double check on all of those that those are shown on all of these. So I will go through and let's just see if I can see. I might have to go through and do this manually. Yep, that one's good. All right. Okay, so I'm going through and I'm changing those. I'll do that. I'll continue doing this when we're done at the end of class today, because that's going to take me a few minutes to get through all those and show those. So, cool. What else we got? So just looking at this, let's look at modules. So like I said, you're gonna have like, so if you go into like, and if you haven't noticed this yet, by the way, some people haven't like found this stuff yet. If you like say class 3 fundamentals of sound 3, so I'll have the slides here and I have the video here. So if you want to go back, if there's something that you feel fuzzy on, you're like, maybe I should go back and review that. But I have the PDFs here, so you can look at the PDFs of the class, and you can download those. So this kind of stuff takes forever. Like, so what it's doing right now is it's rendering this 10 megabytes of that PDF. What I would recommend doing is just downloading the PDF. So if you click on that and download it, and it'll save to your download folder. You don't have to keep them forever, but for, at least like for the exam, you might want to just download them and put them all into one folder so that you can refer back to those if you need to, and get back in and find that information quickly. Because this takes forever. Like, and to be hunting around back and forth on the Canvas site while you're taking the exam, it's kind of a pain. So the way I would do it for me is I would have all these downloaded. I would have my book available, my calculator, pencil and paper, and then I would have a tab open for all my quizzes, so I can go back and look at my old quizzes, and then I would have a separate page open for the exam itself. And so I would keep the exam like on a separate thing here. This takes forever. Yeah, so I wouldn't do it this way. So okay, let's go back. Cool. So fairly, I like to think it's pretty well organized. So, yeah. What else is like maybe some fuzzy areas that could warrant some discussion? Anybody got anything? I mean, if we're good to go, we're good to go, and that's okay. I mean, I feel like, I mean, my goal here is to heavily prepare you for all the scenarios here. So, if you're feeling like, I mean, there's always a little bit of pre exam nerves that go along with this, but I think compared to say other classes or other situations, you have a lot of resources at your disposal right now, where you have a lot of like information at your disposal. It's not like you're sitting in a classroom with where it's closed book. The way I've done this in the past is I usually will do this. You get one sheet of, when I do this as an in-class thing, you'll get one sheet of paper as a cheat sheet, and then the rest of it you don't. Everything else is, well, it's called closed book. Besides that, so you have a lot of resources at your disposal. So I think even if you're nervous about some of the answers, like you have a lot of support to back up your decisions when you're making these. I just know that for a lot of people the confidence in the math, some of the math questions can be a little scary sometimes. So, and I sympathize with that, but what I'm hoping is that once you go through this stuff, and the reason is not to like, I'm not trying to beat you down with math. What I'm trying to do is show you that when the math makes sense, it's really cool. Especially when we start getting into some of these upcoming sections and we start doing the math and modeling the rooms, and all of a sudden, a little bit of math, and all of a sudden it matches what's actually physically happening in the room. It's like magic. It's the coolest thing. And so when math matches the real world, it's cool. So, yeah, Jared, good question. So what equipment, okay, this is a bit of a sidestep, but that's okay. Nobody else is asking any questions right here. So we can address this right now. So what equipment would be needed to turn this into a side gig? And I think like what I've done is, I don't have it posted right now yet, but under modules, actually the modules down at the bottom, where is that? Maybe I have it somewhere else. Oh, I thought I had it. Maybe I got rid of it. Okay, I'll add it in as a module here. But honestly, there's three things that you'll need to actually make this stuff work. Room EQ Wizard, which we started talking about like a little bit ago. I was having some problems with that, but we're gonna get that back in here. So this software is completely free. It's amazing, and then they actually they give you some equipment suggestions over here. So so here they have like the Dayton audio thing right here. So if we click on this, it'll take us to the Dayton audio. Oof, that seems a little expensive. So it's $75 for this microphone right here. You can also find it at Parts Express, but you just need a measurement microphone. So if we take a look at Parts Express, we can also look on Amazon here. Let's just see what they've got on Amazon here. I'm going to go to just Amazon and look for measurement mic. Let's just see what they've kind of take a survey of what they've got going on here. So this is the one we were just looking at. This one's been around forever. I used to have this one. I broke it, but I used to have this one for a long time. So the DBX one. Let's go over and look at Sweetwater for a minute and just see what they've got for measurement microphones. So they've got, so over here on Dayton Audio and even on Amazon, let's do measurement mic here. These are going to be where you find the budget ones. The way I always find these, I just search. I'll click on one of them just to like find a measurement mic, and then I'll look at the breadcrumb here to find test equipment and audio. And let's do test equipment. And I think they have, I guess it's under audio analyzers. That's crazy. Now let's look up a mic. There's other systems out there that are like fancy and schmancy, which are cool. Let's see if I can find a measurement mic here. What was it called? It's called the EMM6. There it is. Okay, so if I look up this one microphone, and so it's USB. That's weird. This is not a USB microphone. So it's a weird category there. Let's just look at wired microphones. I don't know why they're calling it USB. That's incorrect. This one is a USB mic. Those are, but this one is not. But anyway, so what's interesting is if you show it on Amazon, that one on Amazon is $75. It's the same microphone right here for $46. Oh wait, this might be actually under my this might be a little bit more expensive. This is I get like wholesale on these, so this might be a little more expensive, but it's not that expensive. So that's a good mic to start with. But what I would look at here, if we look at measurement microphones over at Sweetwater, so the Sonar Works right here. This is a great one. It's essentially the same microphone. The DBX RTA, that's $100. These are all good. So this is when you get into the fancy ones. So actually the M30 right here, I have one of these. I do use this one. This is my studio, like this is one I use in the studio. And you're like, well, what's the difference? What makes this one more expensive? This one goes up to 30 kilohertz. So it's pretty flat. Like this one goes up to 50 kilohertz. So this one goes crazy. But I don't bring this one out into the field. That one stays home with me. I also have one of these. I have an Audix TM1. I really like this one. I use this one. This is kind of my go-to that I use a lot. But I think this is a pretty solid mic right here. But the SonarWorks ones are pretty awesome. PreSonus, $100. Orlex, PV, Behringer. So they're wow, this one's $30 on Sweetwater. That's insane. So it would work, but I think probably in about this one would be a solid choice right here, because this one includes some of the SonarWorks software, but you can just use you can use this mic by itself with the Room EQ Wizard. And the other thing that you're going to need is on a Room EQ Wizard is you need an interface. So a 2-channel interface, any interface will work, but 2-channel interface. So like the Focusrite Scarlett, this is the one I use most often these days. I have the not the Solo, but I just have the Focusrite 2i2. That is kind of my go-to field recorder. So I bring this one around. So that's kind of my thing. And so these are like our 2-channel interfaces are a couple $100 these days. Like, so if we did, let's see what this costs. There it is. Whoops. Do this one. So the 2i2 is running for like $160 these days, or $170. So if you have just any USB interface will work just fine. And so just a mic pre or interface, and then free software. So the all in, like you could get in for probably about $250 probably for the whole investment, plus some cables. And you're off to the races. And that's really all you need. And with that you can start making money off this thing. So how do you actually make money off this? We can talk more about that probably on another day, but basically you just start advertising on Craigslist if you want to. That's a good starting point. Cool. I know we got off topic a little bit there. So let's pull this back in. So let's see if there's anything else with the midterms that we want to discuss. But yeah, Jared. So of course, let's keep this discussion going, because I want everybody in this place. And in fact, unfortunately, just because COVID, we're not around. But what I did is for this class, I ordered. I think I have 50 of the SonarWorks mics in the core now. Well, they might be at Scott's house, or Carter, are they in the core?
They should be in the core, at least a lot of them.
Okay, cool. So those are available, and I think we're going to try to make those available for checkout. So that's the point, is that we have these things so you can check these things out. And actually, we have some of these Steinbergs. Maybe we can set those up as a little package for checking them out, for doing acoustic analysis. So normally what I would do in a normal semester is that's part of the class, is actually doing a room analysis. But it's hard given our situation. So we're going to bypass that part of the class. Cool. All right. So back to the midterm. What else we got? Okay, sweet. Why don't we do this? So we have, it's 11:56 right now. So it means we have another like 15, 20 minutes left of the class. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and sign off for now. But what I want you to do, if you have not done this yet, is I would really encourage you to right now, because you have another 15 minutes, is to sit down and hammer out any of the remaining homeworks that are due, like 8, 9, and 10. Like get those done as soon as possible. Try and get those done today if you can, and that way you can focus on the exam when it goes live tomorrow. If you still have only done, like, maybe only get like 8 done today and focus on 9 and 10 tomorrow, and then do the exam on Thursday. That's fine too. But what I don't want you to do is just, it feels like, I don't want you to feel like you're too overwhelmed. There's a lot going on. So what I encourage you to do for the next 15, 20 minutes is, before your next class, if you have a next class, is just to hammer away at this stuff and hit me up if you have any questions on any of the midterm stuff. Like, try to not hit me up about questions about the midterm during the midterm. If you're something that's like, you're just like, this question does not make sense, just power through it, and then you can hit me up afterwards, and we can address it. If there's like something that's worded funny, or a misspelling, or a typo, or something like that, that makes it so it doesn't make sense. Oh, so Jenna, so the decibel sheet is going to be posted right here under the week 9. This is our week that we're right here. It'll be posted right here as soon as I'm done. I need to get a couple more questions on here, because I want to like, I've only gone through DBSPL. I need to do a DBU question and a DBV question real quick. So it's going to take me a few minutes. It's going to take me about another half an hour or hour to finish this thing. I mean, it doesn't look like it, but this is taking me about 4 hours to type this thing up so far. It's just so complicated to type equations into pages. It's not actually that, once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad, but some of it's annoying. So it's going to take me just a little bit longer to get this thing done. So this should be posted within the next couple hours. I'm trying to get this done before my next class, so I'm cranking on this. But this will be posted in Canvas right here, so you can expect that. And if you want to print it out, cool. But I would say just keep it out. It's just going to be PDF, so it's just available for you to match that 1-to-1. Cool. All right, my friends. What I will say, so I'm going to sign off here. I'm going to say good luck, and I will check in as needed. But also, remember, like I said, next week I was going to be asynchronous, so I'll post the lectures, but I will not be. I will be out of town, so my communication may be a little bit delayed. So, but I'm around all week, and I'm around anytime. So if you have any questions, let me know. All right, my friends. May the force be with you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.